I am here doing my first live, and I'm super excited to invite on Dr. Jennifer Edwards, who is a friend, a colleague, and a fellow coach. So let me add her in right now, and she's going to join us to talk about how to bring out your inner kick-ass leader. So let me grab her. Here she is.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
This is fun. Our
This
first
is
one.
so fun. Our first one, and I'm so excited to share with everybody everything that you and I have been discussing about being a kick-ass leader.
Me too. I'm so excited, and bear with us, everybody. We are doing this raw and messy for our first time. So Thank you for joining. And what we really want to talk about is this idea that everybody is a leader, whether it's at work, whether it's in your family, whether it is in your community, whether it's among your friends. Anytime that you're in a position to have an impact on somebody else, you are a leader.
Yeah, and Shayna, that is so important to point out because so many people think leadership is you have to be a manager or a supervisor or coaching a team. And the context, the idea that we are leaders anytime we are influencing another person is novel for some people, but it's so important because it's true.
So I love that you said that, because I think so many of us, even those of us who are in leadership roles, sometimes feel like, well, we're not maybe at the top,
Right.
or maybe we are, we are a leader in our family, but what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sort of curious, like maybe in what you've seen in your life, in your professional life, personal, what do you sort of see when you think of a leader? How do you define it in your mind?
Well, in my mind, I think of a leader as a person who is in any position to influence another. And it's so important to think of it that way because, like we said, it goes outside the normal definitions. But think about your children. Think about you're hanging out with a niece or nephew. And think about how you might be even leading people who are in leadership positions above you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how you can influence your supervisor or your boss, how you can have influence on a team. No matter what you're doing, if you're influencing another, you're a leader.
I think about that, the way that you said that, it reminds me of like managing up, right? And I see this a
Exactly.
lot with clients, right? It's this idea that like, oh, I can't really make any changes. It's not my decision, but somebody above me told me to do something. And it's like, hold on a minute. You
Mm-hmm.
have a choice in your life, right? You get to say, you get to make decisions. You get to sort of say what you need. You get to share what your experience is and express yourself. And part of that is leading. And that's the idea of managing up. It's leading up, if you will, in some way.
Right. And in all of these scenarios, whether managing up, managing your family, or leading, I should say, your family, what it all comes down to is not whether or not you're leading, but how are you leading? So understanding the situations where you show up as a leader allows you then to start to bring some conscious choice to what that looks like and the impact that you're going to have on the people around you.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that you and I talked about as we were thinking about, well, what do we want to share as it relates to leadership, was this idea that part of being a leader is this concept of taking responsibility for how you show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like, even as we sort of thought about that, what does that mean for you?
That concept means everything to me. That is the defining context from which I live my entire life. And I believe that it is the key to creating happiness, to creating joy, satisfaction, good relationships. You name it, you want it, take responsibility. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, well, it's all my fault or everything's, on me. It's actually one of the most empowering stances that you can choose to take for your life, in my opinion.
I agree. It's empowering. It's
Very.
empowering because I think sometimes this happens where maybe we're having a difficult conversation or we have to deliver difficult news as a leader. And there's, I think, this human response to sort of say like, well, it's outside of me, like this wasn't my choice, or I didn't really decide to do this, but we have to. When I think there is this other way to show up, which is I'm part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I take responsibility? How can I come at this from a place of feeling empowered? It doesn't mean I like it, but it means that I feel that I am at choice with how I am playing my role in this greater scheme of things. I think that's a very Yeah, very empowered way just to sort of show up.
Right. And it may very well be somebody's in a situation where they weren't a part of it, right? And they didn't have a say. And somebody said, go deliver this. Even then, they can have a choice about how they show up inside of that conversation, about the energy that they bring, the feelings that they invoke in another. But it does require saying, okay, I'm going to be responsible for how I show up inside of a situation that I don't necessarily want and maybe didn't ask for.
Mm. It's a really, really good point. Yeah, I mean, and I think we probably both worked with and seen, and maybe even been in some way leaders where we've done it well and where we haven't done it as
Oh,
well. So
oh
it's not
yeah.
right that it's easy. It's not. Being a leader is not an easy, it's not easy, but you do have choice with how you do it, right? And I know, like, if I even think about certain clients that I've worked with, you know, I remember many of them actually have gotten sort of feedback from teams where they say, we kind of felt like you pushed off the hard stuff, like you sort of pushed it down to us or you else. And while we know it wasn't your fault, we just really wanted you to sort of step up and sort of help us see the path forward. And part of that, I think, was this lack of the responsibility piece. It was the lack of saying, well, I guess we got to do this. When really it's, hey guys, I know this is hard. Here's the role that we play. Here is where we have control and choice. And here's how I'm going to lead you through it. And
Right.
not only, you know, are you necessarily doing that downwards, but you can also, to your point earlier, do it upwards too. How can you lead from behind as well?
Yeah. And as that applies to the rest of your life, you know, if you're with a group of friends, if you're with your children, you're with your partner, it how we show up, how we respond to situations, events, things that people say isn't, like you said, it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be pretty. But even in times where we were not able to respond or behave how we might have wanted to, we can always look back and say, where can I be responsible? I was, you know, I owned a large animal hospital for many years, and I was a leader of the doctors, all my employees. And as I look back on that now, there was a lot of things that I love, and there were a lot of things I look back and I'm like, ooh, I did not necessarily bring my best self forward. And when things didn't work out, always tried to say, where can I be responsible and say, did they not have enough training? Was there not enough communication? You know, what happened and how can I address? Because as long as things are because of fill in the blank, him, her, circumstance, whatever, we strip ourselves of power to either bring something great or remedy it when we don't always bring our greatest
I
self.
totally agree. Yeah, it makes me think too, even when I was leading a team before this life, and I think in a minute maybe we talk about what we do. But when I was leading a team previously, I think sometimes, even though I was in the leadership position, I was often looking, I think, for permission to have the responsibility. Like,
Yes.
I want you to tell me it's okay to take ownership here. It's okay to express what you need and what's going on and your role in it. And looking back, similar to you, I think I did a lot of things well. I think one of the things I didn't do well was I was waiting for somebody to knight me, even though I had the title. I didn't always embody it. I think sometimes right? I didn't always embody it, and it's like, why? What was I waiting for? Like, I had a team of people that were looking up to me and
Mm-hmm.
were able to inspire and to motivate, and they trusted me. And I think part of that came with this ability for me to sometimes say, like, I'm taking responsibility for this thing. I don't always like it, but like, this is the role we play. It's important.
Right. The other part of it too is one of the things that keeps a lot of leaders, and I know this was the case for me, in certain circumstances, from bringing our most powerful, you know, I shouldn't say powerful, but empowered selves forward and doing the best job that we can do is because honestly, when things are difficult, a lot of our own stuff comes up, you know, our own feeling like an imposter, our own insecurities, our own beliefs and stories about ourselves. And so often those things are running in the background. We're not even aware. It's like this subconscious crap that's going on back here that is driving us. And then we look back and we go, oh, why did I do that? Because we're not aware.
Yeah.
And early on, when I look back, before I, really started on a journey of self-exploration, it was hard for me as a leader to bring accountability, to bring discipline, because I worked very closely with a lot of my employees and I wanted them to like me. We were friends and all of that. And we know that doesn't work. I know that now. But, all those years ago, that was some of my own stuff. And it was me, at the time working through coaches and working through training programs. As I cultivated the awareness, I started to go, oh, I get it now. And start to shift into more empowered ways of showing up.
Absolutely. Well, isn't that, I mean, it's a perfect segue, I think, just to get into so much of what we do. And I think, we work with our clients in different ways, both running our own practices. But I think one of the things that we share in common is creating that awareness around some of the things that are playing in the background, to your point, that we don't even realize are there and are impacting how we show up.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, right, it's like you have to start with the awareness piece, because if you don't know what's happening, you can't do anything with it.
Right.
So I'm aware. How do we then move into this place of, okay, accepting that that's what it is so we can work on it? And then that moves us into the action phase, right? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
So then we could take a minute and maybe share a little bit about what you do and who you are, and I'll do the same. And then we can wrap it up and we will revisit another time and talk about another aspect of leadership.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is a perfect topic for our next
I'm making
episode. So my name is Jennifer, and I have been a veterinarian for 26 years. I was an owner of a multi-million-dollar animal hospital for much of that time, which I sold, and I am now a mindset and leadership coach. And I help professional women to move past all these things we just said that keep them stuck and blocked and disempowered, so that they can create amazing lives that light them up, whether it's work, home, self. It's all possible. That's my belief.
That was beautiful. That was so inspirational. Thank you. And I'm Bergman. I am an executive and leadership coach, and I partner specifically with parents who are in executive and leadership roles, who are trying to navigate all the juggles that come with their personal lives, their professional lives. I typically coach quite high performers, high achievers, who are being pulled in a million directions trying to do it all well. And so maybe they're experiencing burnout. Maybe they are dealing with imposter syndrome. Maybe they're just trying to find the so-called balance, which I don't believe in.
Neither.
There we go. And similar to Jen, I work privately with clients. I do keynotes. I do podcasts. We're now making this foray into the live world of Instagram.
Yep.
And Jen and I collaborate a lot. And so we're excited to bring our shared knowledge to you. And hopefully we will get to do this again. And I think, to Jen's point, we have our next topic for next time.
We do. What has to happen in order to start taking the steps of cultivating awareness and then action? And another topic after that, I think it would be great to let people know why neither one of us resonates with the term balance.
Oh, I love it. Okay, Let's do it. You're on. You're on. Okay.
I'm so excited.
I'm going to now figure out how to turn this off, and I will see you.
Bye, everyone.